Hello. Hello there, thank you for clicking on my video. As you can see, I'm going to be talking about how Dragon Ball Super ruined Dragon Ball for me. The reason for this is quite long, it's why this video is quite long, but I plan to make this a burning passion to spread an important message to any Dragon Ball fan out there on the major issues I personally found with Dragon Ball Super, the anime and the manga. I'll do this within chapters. Each chapter will talk about an arc of Super and how it impacted Dragon Ball, as well as comparing Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z to Super, followed by a conclusion. Now, let's start. Who am I? My channel name is Freeza Summer. I'll explain later as to why, but I have been a fan of Dragon Ball for over a decade. I have seen Kai being released in my childhood, as well as the original series and even Super, even though my first introduction was through Raging Blast 2. Besides that point, let's begin. Chapter 1. So we begin by talking about the first arc of Dragon Ball Super. Now this can vary depending on if you've watched the Dragon Ball Super movies or the anime. Now, the Dragon Ball Super movies are kind of a separate entity to the anime and the manga because they narrate different events to what happens in both, excluding Super Broly, of course. So I'm going to focus on the main content we have that is canon to the Dragon Ball series. So I'll briefly talk about the arc of Battle of Gods and all the new additions and extensions we had to this series. So the plot is simple. Beerus, a god of destruction, wakes up from a long decade or so old nap because he had a dream about a Super Saiyan god. Leads him to seek out the Oracle Fish, who tells him to go to Earth and find a Saiyan. That's where Beerus then goes there after meeting Goku on King Kai's planet and Goku challenging him, only to be beat by Beerus. And then Beerus goes to Bulma's party where he gets angry, only for Shenron to tell them how to summon a Super Saiyan God, which then through 5 Saiyans, which is a GT reference, a battle between Goku and Beerus occur. Beerus wins. Super Saiyan God is unleashed, and Goku and Beerus battle. It's a great battle, and in the end, Beerus of course wins, and decides to spare everyone due to Goku's personality and motivation he had. Now, let's talk about my main issues with this arc. First off, I'm going to start with Beerus. Now, I know how controversial this is and how much everyone loves Beerus, but the addition of our Sphinx Cat destroyed our continuity, mainly to what happens in Z. So first off, Beerus is to have approved Freeza destroying planet Vegeta. Now this is a major problem due to the fact that Freeza was supposed to be the so-called Emperor of the universe. So if he was obedient to Beerus, it affects the impact of this battle with Goku, making it seem that it was Beerus overseeing everything and not Freeza. Another major issue is that Beerus is to have existed during the Buu saga. This makes no sense because Supreme Kai Shin was trying to stop Buu, and if he knew the existence of Beerus, he would have recruited him to help him eliminate Buu, since Buu destroys multiple planets with no permission from Beerus. So why would Beerus be asleep if Supreme Kai was going to die twice against Buu? I'll let you answer that, since it threatens the very existence of Beerus himself. Another issue is Beerus supposedly sealed Elder Kai. Now this is an issue, and I'll show you the manga panel, so you can see Toriyama himself was speaking during Z about whoever sealed Elder Kai in the Z Sword. As you can see, Elder Kai specifically says almost as terrible as Buu. Now, what you can say terrible means in terms of evil, in general, in this conversation and in this context, he's talking about power. So this immediately becomes a retcon and causes issues to the series, because Beerus would have no reason to seal Elder Kai away in a sword. Not to mention, Beerus has never once hinted at or done anything of the sort throughout his entire introduction up to this point. So this creates a big inconsistency for me. Finally, to fix this issue of Beerus being incorporated into Dragon Ball as a whole, they could have just mentioned he was in another dimension for years. That didn't affect if Supreme Kai died or not, and have appeared in the same dimension. It might have affected him then, but also have Beerus not be the one who sealed Elder Kai away, because there's no reason to have him do that, especially since it's a direct retcon. And Vegeta also supposedly knowing about Beerus beforehand creates a lot more issues, due to Vegeta never bringing up Beerus ever throughout the entirety of Dragon Ball Z, even though he supposedly humiliated King Vegeta more than Frieza did. So, the second character I'm going to be talking about is Whis. Everyone also loves Whis too, but he has the same issues as Beerus. Having the existence of angels could work. Having them be mentors and stronger than God of Destructions but unable to get involved is an interesting concept, but flawed nonetheless. As soon as a character that is incredibly strong exists, it creates issues for the story, such that when a villain comes along, why doesn't the powerful character get involved? it creates more problems than solutions and is a writing trope that should be avoided. So angels existing aren't really justified, as they never change or influence the plot in any way. The best example of this is in Xenoverse 2. Now, I know I'm talking about a game here, but Xenoverse 2 has a lot of accurate depictions to the anime and manga counterparts of our beloved super characters. Now, if you pick Whis as your mentor to fight with you in the Goku Black arcs, when you do the extended missions as like DLC, Whis ends up running away and he says it's not his duty to fight since he's supposed to stay neutral. So, we will now talk about Vegeta. In this arc specifically, Vegeta angers me more than ever, because Vegeta, in the Dragon Ball Z, we know his infamous speech, "You are the best." I know he says this internally, but we know that Vegeta personally knew he was not better than Goku, and he'd accepted his place in the world, as well as being humble, which was a major trait that Vegeta earned at the end of the series, and it was over years and years of development. Now, unfortunately, in this arc, we are back to Vegeta calling Goku a clown, and being number one, and that he's stronger and all that stuff. So all that development across 12 years, from age 762 specifically, when Saiyan Saga started, to age 774, when the Buu Saga at the very end, all disappeared in a matter of a few short months, because supposedly Battle of Gods took place about 6 months after the Buu arc. It's very infuriating having Vegeta being regressed to this degree. It's also insulting to us fans who gave the show time and attention to get this response from Vegeta. Not to mention Vegeta's rage against Beerus was terrible and looked awful instead of the actual fit of anger that he had in the movie. Not to mention how regularly Vegeta degraded himself just to please Beerus, even though he never stooped to such levels for Freeza, who by the way killed his very father, literally raised him for years in awful conditions. Not to mention, there's an amazing scene in Dragon Ball Z where Freeza causes Kid Buu, who is actually evil incarnate, to be shaking from fear because Vegeta refused to back down and was still getting up after every beating he got from Buu, even though he knew how remorseless and complete psychopathic Buu was, but he still stood up against him and didn't back down. That's the Vegeta we know, not the Vegeta that is presented in this arc. That's just a shell of a former Saiyan that we know and love. Goku in this arc also has been regressed to a child, constantly wanting to challenge and fight whomever he sees, even though he knows beforehand Beerus was a god of destruction, and Goku needs to know his place. Now, Goku never behaved this way against Shin, because he realized the gravity of the situation, and he still had a brain, and he understood that Shin is a Supreme Kai, and he's a god, he's way above him, so he was never going to try and challenge him, and instead he was going to try and help him, rather than fight like a brainless beast. Not to mention the fact that Goku waited in this arc till Beerus almost destroyed the planet and everyone was hopeless and was about to be obliterated completely before he stepped in and told Beerus to stop. Now, some fans might argue that, well, this is just to ramp up the tension, but in my opinion, this is change to Goku's character. The reason for this is because in the Cell Saga, we know that Goku sacrificed himself just to save Earth, and Goku knew when there was no other choice that he had to use the instant transmission to get Cell out of there and save everyone. He wouldn't have just waited till the last second before Cell blew himself up before doing it. The reason the scene was slowed down in the anime was to build up the emotion because Goku was about to die after we had been with him throughout the entirety of this arc. Even Goku at the end of the Buu Saga would never behave this way at all. So it's pretty much an entire character regression. Now, we're going to talk about the Super Saiyan God transformation. Now, while this transformation pays a huge homage to Dragon Ball GT, I never liked this form's design. Well, it pays a homage in GT in terms of attaining the transformation, but not really in terms of the design-wise. It never fit the series' previous transformations as they got more and more primal, just like the Uzaru scream when Goku finally becomes a Super Saiyan 3. This form lacks and looks like Goku has overused Kaioken to the point he's become 100% red. He's also looking a lot sleeker and thinner. Also, this form wasn't earned. They technically used Shenron and then used 6 Saiyans, and then poof, all of a sudden he became a Super Saiyan God, all in a matter of probably a few hours. It's unearned and lazy. Transformation was just such a shame. Do you remember the Super Saiyan 1 transformation? Do you remember how iconic Super Saiyan 2 was? Even Super Saiyan 3 transformation, it took 7 years for Goku to attain that, not 2-3 hours. Overall, I don't like this transformation, and it lacks the impact and builds up that the previous transformations had earned themselves throughout the series of Dragon Ball. Chapter 2. Now, if you've clicked or you've moved on to this chapter, we're now going to be talking about the Resurrection F Saga. Now, this saga frustrates me more than the previous saga. The reason for this is... So, let's just begin with a brief summary, and I'll explain as we move on. Now, Freeza is revived using the Dragon Balls by his henchmen. He then trains for 4 months and becomes Golden Freeza. At the same time, Goku and Vegeta train and attain Super Saiyan Blue thanks to Whis. Freeza then returns to Earth, threatens Earth, so Goku and Vegeta are forced to jump in, defeat Golden Freeza, restore Earth back to peace, and that's pretty much a summary of this arc. Now, this arc has many inconsistencies and fanbait, and we're going to break them down. Now, let's start with our characters. First off, the main big bad himself, Freeza. Now, I love the addition of Freeza coming back, because Freeza was an incredible character in Dragon Ball Z, and in my personal opinion, was the best villain in Dragon Ball Z. Now, I know this is my personal opinion. You can also argue that Cell is better than Freeza, or even Boo in some aspects. Now, I'm going to be talking about why certain issues about Freeza in this arc that I didn't really like due to his previous character interpretations. So first off, when Frieza's henchmen ask him about reviving his father, Freeza asks him to not be revived, which is quite unlike his character. Now, I know I'm being a bit really critical here, but the reason for this, I find this as a main issue, is because Frieza's father, King Cold, had provided great support for Freeza in the Android saga in Dragon Ball Z, as he literally brought him back from the brink of death and revived him, making him even stronger. So Freeza knows how powerful his father was, and he knows he could have used his father as a training partner. But this never comes up in Frieza's mind, and it's never done, which is such a shame because this is a wasted potential. We could have had Golden Cold and Golden Freeza. Imagine how interesting that would have been. But it's all rushed, and we don't get that, unfortunately. So I find that a big issue. After that, Freeza trains with one of his henchmen called Tagoma, a boring, forgettable character, just like his design, and in only 4 months he becomes stronger than Super Saiyan Blue. So let's explain why the writing here is flawed severely. First off, Freeza started with a max power level on Namek of 120 million. According to the Daizenshu, after he was mechanized, it was said that his power jumped to 150 million, maybe even more. This is why he was sure he could defeat Goku, and he grew stronger as the transformation. Now, I'm going to show you the manga panel where Mecha Freeza explicitly says that he's gotten stronger from Namek. And you can see here, because I don't want any differences. Now, Goku's journey in Z went from about 150 million, which was Super Saiyan. I'm starting from the end of the Freeza saga, just like Freeza was, to about 30 billion in terms of power. Of course, this could be more. There's not really any confirmation of Goku's power at the end of the Buu saga, but it's around 30 billion, give or take, probably even more. And then finally in Super, we know that Super Saiyan Blue is quintillions, so he went from the billions into the quintillions, which is about a trillion jump in boost. Now, Frieza from jumping from 150 million to the quintillions is absolutely insane. The reason for this is what's the multiplier here? It's 1 trillion. So you can imagine that the multiplier itself is greater than the power level of Goku at the end of the Buu saga. Now, that's just how big this jump is. It's really difficult to wrap your head around. And in 4 months, and this is not only in 4 months, this is the first time Frieza's ever trained in his entire life, so he has no experience. Yeah, that's completely unrealistic. Even if people say he's a mutant and he can attain that power, 1 trillion in 4 months and never having experience before makes absolute zero sense, especially when you're just shooting death beams at a forgettable henchman and constantly reviving him. The training alone, it's not enough, and the fight between him and Goku, when they fight on Earth, is absolutely awful. They drag out certain beam clashes and certain beam attacks, and there's just no creativity in the fight. It feels lazy, it feels boring. Do you remember how remarkable and interesting the Goku and Frieza fight?
Man, that's fast! Blazing!
on Namek. The music, the animation. After that, Freeza was defeated in a boring way and his arc was finished. Now, let's talk about Goku and Vegeta. The reason I'm talking about both here instead of separate is because they've been in the same area together and received somewhat the same development. Now, they both were training on Beerus's planet together, which was interesting and fun, and the anime gives some great context, like episode 19, I think, where they train on Beerus's planet and learn new form. It's really interesting and really fun, and it develops Goku and Vegeta's character. It also reminds me of Dragon Ball Z back in the early days. It's one of the only episodes in Super, and I think it's one of the best episodes in Super, especially from this arc. Now, it also gives us a justification for how they attained Super Saiyan Blue, because these transformations are earned a bit far too quickly. In about 20 episodes, maybe even less, that they've already jumped to the next transformation from Super Saiyan God. Now, this is incredibly quick, especially when Dragon Ball Z, we went from Super Saiyan in episode 96, and then the next level, which of course we all know, was Super Vegeta, was not attained until about episode 162, so that's about 70 episodes gap, compared to Super, which only had about 20 episodes, so it's less than a third of that development rushed. Now, even worse is the form is completely useless. It never gets a win. It's humiliated throughout the entirety of Super. Well, in the anime anyway. In the manga, it's given respect. But in the anime, it just completely loses. It loses to Freeza. And it only wins overall in the end is because of stamina. But not because of power. So the form is actually weaker than Golden Freeza. Even though both Vegeta and Goku trained with Beerus and Whis. And Freeza just trained for 4 months alone and managed to surpass that. So that's just absolute inconsistent writing, and it's just ridiculous. Finally, letting Goku steal the win from Vegeta is the biggest middle finger I've ever seen in my whole life. I mean, this was built up as Vegeta's revenge to finally beat Freeza after all these years. He's stronger than Freeza. It's like if Vegeta had attained Super Saiyan on Namek. This was gonna be amazing, and all of a sudden it's taken away in a flash. Frieza wins, and then Whis rewinds time, and then Vegeta loses the ability to defeat Frieza, and Goku just steals it. Overall, both characters are quite consistent, including Vegeta, with his regression, of course, since the Battle of Gods. He's still consistent with how his type of character behaves, especially how Frieza himself thought that he joined his side, due to how childish Vegeta was acting. And Goku, with his stupidity, like letting Freeza go again. Seriously? I mean, you can understand in Dragon Ball Z why he let Freeza go. Freeza literally played on his emotions since he's a manipulative liar and a psychopath. So he tricked Goku into giving him his energy. But here, Goku's wise. He's had years of combat experience. He wouldn't repeat the same mistake here, come back and trade. He knows how dangerous Frieza is. How in 4 months, Frieza had a 1 trillion multiplier. If Goku had realized the intensity of that, what if Frieza had decided to go train for a year? He could get quadrillions of multipliers, and then he'd destroy everyone and no one could do anything. So Goku shouldn't have let Frieza go again here. It makes absolutely no sense, and it's complete regression of his character, which is very insulting. Now, we're going to be talking about Whis and Beerus. Whis' BS plot powers allow reverse time. Now, the reason I hate this is because, first off, this power is never ever used again throughout the entirety of Super. It's used one time. So if you're going to introduce a new mechanic, use it multiple times, like the instant transmission in Dragon Ball Z. Why use it only once? If you're going to use it only once, just don't introduce it at all. It gives us the question of why hasn't it been used again? Now, Whis uses this and reverses time. However, it makes no sense since Whis himself has said to be neutral, and like I mentioned earlier about the Xenoverse games, Whis doesn't want to get involved in any sort of conflict, so it's kind of inconsistent with his character. And him constantly whining about food and how excited he gets about food is very, very boring, especially when it's one of Whis' like only defining traits, as well as being maybe wise and funny. Other than that, Beerus being there as well during the fight between Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Golden Freeza is absolutely inconsistent and a big writing issue. The reason for this is because Beerus decides not to get involved, even though he should see how powerful Frieza has become and how he's going to destroy planet Earth. And if Beerus didn't care about planet Earth being destroyed, then why did he tell Whis to first time to save Goku? Now, fans could say, well, Beerus and Whis wanted to teach Goku a lesson, and they wanted to teach him something new, but this is inconsistent because they didn't care. They wanted Goku to fight Freeza by himself. Now, you could put this whole scenario as like a student, as a master, letting his student make mistakes and then stepping in the last second when his student needs help. But I just find this scene is entirely inconsistent, because if you're not going to get involved, especially when you're an angel as well and you're supposed to have a neutral stance and then you get involved, it's inconsistent to how your character's been established. And they ruined this arc because Frieza had won, and due to the reverse time contradiction thing, Frieza loses. So it builds up the arc and it makes it completely pointless. It's the same type of scenario is as if Shin from the Buu Saga, who's stated to have been far stronger than Frieza, just there on Namek and told Goku and friends that I can't get involved against Frieza, and then when Frieza's about to kill Krillin, he gets involved and destroys Frieza, and in a heartbeat. It makes no sense, it's very bad writing. So Beerus shouldn't have been there at all, and it ruined the whole fight between Golden Frieza and Goku. Not that much there was a fight anyway, the choreography was really bad. Chapter 3. We are now going to finally not only talk about the anime, but also the manga. The reason for this is now, previously on the previous arcs, the manga decided not to recap the anime because it knew fans would get bored, so they decided to just jump into this arc. So we are going to compare some segments of the manga from DBS to the anime, because there are some segments I think are written better and overall make more sense than what the anime chose to go with. So let's start. Let's begin with a short conclusion of what this arc is about and what's its brief summary. So, spoilers, sorry about not mentioning this prior, but spoilers now to anyone who has not seen Super or seen what this arc's about. So, click off this chapter if you don't want to be spoiled, and I'd just say overall the entire video. Now, let's break down the subplots. So, we begin with Champa, Beerus' brother, crashing into Beerus' planet. Now, this angers Beerus, and Champa explains that he wants Earth, due to the food. Champa says he will host a tournament, and the winner will get to decide the fate of the Earth. He also explains he has found 6 of the Super Dragon Balls the size of planets. He doesn't know where the 7th is. So the tournament takes place between 5 fighters from both sides of the universes, and they fight. Eventually, of course, Universe 7 wins, and then Zeno, the greatest being the Omni King, appears and says he will host his own tournament, due to enjoying this tournament that we had in this arc, and due to Goku's stupidity also by suggesting that he should do a tournament. He then leaves, and Beerus finds the last Dragon Ball, which is the actual planet they were fighting on the entire time for this arc, and then wishes Champa his own Earth, which is really heartwarming and wholesome. However, this plot goes nowhere and it's never referenced again, so let's break down this arc. First off, we're going to start with our new introductions, Champa and Vados. They are both interesting ideas, especially having Beerus have a brother and Whis having a sister. It's expanding the universe, expanding it into 12 universes to be exact. However, it's quite unnecessary, especially when our single universe of Dragon Ball can technically be infinite, and you can create so much better writing than just copy-paste into another universe, which is basically what they decided to do, because they decided to label our universe as too tiny. Now, our main reason for this could be because of previous writing in Z calling Frieza the strongest being in the universe, so they had to make that consistent by creating more universes. But overall, it shouldn't have been really incorporated because it doesn't really add much to the story. So, the thing is also that it's the entirety of its setup of this arc is for a future arc, which is going to be the end of Super, which I'll be talking about not the next chapter, the chapter after this. So both Vados' character is shown to us as being mature, being wise, and Champa is shown to be the complete opposite, impatient and foolish, which is quite an interesting dynamic. Yet, unfortunately, the anime chooses to not let Beerus or Champa fight, even though both Whis and Vados talk about how powerful and how dangerous both are. Luckily for us, in the manga continuity, if you've read the manga, there's some incredibly well-drawn panels by Toyotaro duking it out with both gods of destruction, and it's really enjoyable. Even though it's quite short, it's so much better than what we got in the anime, and it actually gives us a feeling of how dangerous both of these entities are. And remember, show not tell. That's what Super as a whole has problems with. Now, Universe 6 fighters. We'll start with Botamo, because there's nothing to be said except he's a Winnie the Pooh knockoff and doesn't really do anything to the story, except that he has a unique ability which Goku overcomes quite quickly. And since Winnie the Pooh is now public domain, you may as well just change him to that name, since he can no longer be copyrighted for that. Other than that, he serves no purpose, and is just the opening act of the entire tournament. He's boring and forgettable. Next, we have Vegeta, a giant robot who is invincible due to plot, and his only weakness is being called names, which, in my opinion, and with Vegeta's consistent writing, since Vegeta is the one who fights him, takes far too long to eventually do, since we know Vegeta, one of his best traits is being witty, and he loves to talk down in his opponents. It's Vegeta, it's his signature type style. He loves to talk them down mentally, and it's unforgettable. However, Vegeta, by the time Vegeta talks down to him, it's just took far too long into the battle, and it's when they've changed the environment, and by the end Vegeta defeats him. It should have been done a lot earlier, especially with how we know how Vegeta's character is. Next, we have Frost. Now, Frost was quite an interesting, being a good guy, because we wanted to know what it would be like if we had, well, what if there was a Freeza race that was also good, since remember, Universe 6 and 7 are supposed to be mirrors of each other. However, all this is thrown out the window when it's revealed that he was evil, and it just becomes boring, because he just becomes a knockoff, bad version of Freeza, and it doesn't help that Chris Ursa's brother, Gregor's, voices Frost too, so it just relates him even more to Freeza. No offense to Gregor's or Chris Ursa, both have great performances, but just the fact that Frost himself, his character design and writing is just very similar to just Freeza in general, but worse in every way, makes it all boring, and especially presents him as a scummy, weak, underhanded individual rather than an actual intelligent, powerful, dangerous foe. It would have been even more interesting if he had a secret transformation past that final one, which, like similar to Golden Frieza, would have been an interesting threat that Goku and Vegeta would have had to struggle to beat. He gets obliterated by Vegeta quite easily. So next we're going to be talking about Cabba. Now, Cabba was an interesting Saiyan, but at the same time, he's a boring character, and he's the complete opposite of our Saiyans. Now, I know this is oxymoronic to say that he's boring and interesting at the same time, because initially he looked interesting because he was another Saiyan, and we've never seen Saiyans before, but his whole Saiyan shtick is that they all look malnourished and weak, when our Saiyans from our Universe 7 were all ruthless, and they all packed six-packs, and even the female Saiyans. Instead, Cabba's just a weak, looks pathetic. So Cabba's existence angers Vegeta, and he beats the hell out of him. And then Cabba becomes a Super Saiyan because he asks Vegeta how to become a Super Saiyan, and Vegeta decides to threaten his family or something. And then now he becomes a Super Saiyan. So not only, quoting Vegeta, not only do we now not have a Super Saiyan bargain sale, but we have the Super Saiyan giveaway. Just everyone can unlock Super Saiyan in the most simple, meaningless thing you can possibly imagine. Now, Vegeta defeats him after, of course, Cabba's unlocked Super Saiyan, and then we get the best character out of this arc, Hit. Hit is a badass assassin. He was hired to participate. He wasn't recruited, he was hired. Now let that sink in. He's so badass, he had to literally be hired to come fight. He beats Vegeta with absolute ease, talking about in the anime, and it's really good. And then he challenges Goku, and almost beats him until Goku gives up after using, of course, the Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. It's still not enough. And Hit wins. Where then he forfeits to Universe 7's Monarca because he realizes Goku saw that Hit was limited to using his assassination powers because it's supposed to be a tournament. So now we'll talk about the manga. Now, in the manga, people say he was really not written well because he loses to Super Saiyan Blue, but the reason I argue the opposite, where that it's good that he lost to Super Saiyan Blue, is because Super Saiyan Blue is supposed to be a form attained by the gods. It's supposed to be trained by Beerus and Whis. It was a difficult form to attain, and it deserves to win. And in the manga, we get a great scene. It wasn't even Super Saiyan Blue that was used, it was Super Saiyan God, and that was enough to beat Hit. Now that's satisfying because it builds up what the previous transformations did. If you build up a transformation and then you never show it again, or you never show it having wins or impacts to the story, it becomes a useless transformation. Which is unfortunately what ends up happening to Super Saiyan Blue in the anime. And in my opinion, Hit losing to Super Saiyan God does not lower how badass Hit is, because he lost to a form literally attained by the gods, even though he's had thousands of years of experience. So he should be proud of that, because that's still a badass way to lose. Anyway, we're now going to talk about Universe 7's fighters. So we're going to start off with Goku. He's pretty much the same, and he has much of the same enthusiasm for the tournament, as well as being the strongest member in his team. He's still pretty much a brainless fighter from the previous arcs. The reason for this is he punches Monarca right in the face as Beerus introduces him. It's just inconsistent. So, Vegeta, in my opinion, next ruined this arc. Now, people are going to tell me, oh, why are you attacking Vegeta so much? You've attacked him in the previous arc and now this one. Well, I'm going to explain, because Vegeta suffers from deadly toxicity in the anime of Super throughout the entirety of the anime of Super, where he's constantly regressed and he's retreading and climbing the same mountains and obstacles he'd climbed prior. Now, the reason for this is when this arc starts and this tournament starts, Beerus had recruited Boo to fight. Now, this was exciting because we've never seen Boo fight before, and we love Boo since Boo was recruited at the end of Dragon Ball Z on the side of our heroes. So, it's consistent to see him fight. However, Vegeta had to ruin this moment by opening his mouth like an idiot and suggesting a test that only smart fighters need to get involved. So, all that does is it eliminates Boo from participating in the tournament, and no one else gets eliminated. So Vegeta's stupid idea just gave his whole team a disadvantage rather than an advantage. Now you could say, well, this is Vegeta's character. If the character's too stupid to fight, he may as well not fight. That's what Vegeta would think. But Vegeta's not an idiot. He knows that he needs a disadvantage for the tournament as well. He knows that even though he might think they won't need it, he still will think overall for the team, and he won't cause a massive disadvantage for the team through his stupidity. So this scene I absolutely loathe, and it just ruins a great scene we could have had with Boo, and it's on the writer's behalf to make Vegeta seem like an idiot. After that, we get Piccolo, who in my opinion gets absolutely disrespected. Piccolo was a complete badass in Z.
Piccolo! Am I dreaming? Is it really you?
Good to see you, Gohan.
From when Piccolo arrived on Namek to fight Freeza. Now Piccolo shows up and the music is amazing, the tension was pure badass, and Vegeta himself was actually there, and he stood there and he was just gawking in surprise at how powerful Piccolo had become, and completely shocked that he was stronger than himself even. And it was amazing. It was what our Namekian friend deserved. Piccolo was wasted in this arc. He's nothing more than a substitute fighter that just gets eliminated without participating at all to the story. Now, talking about Monarca, the final participant, is nothing to be said. That he's also just a motivation Beerus uses him for Goku, and nothing more really. Now, we're going to be talking about Beerus and Whis. What can I say except we get more development with Beerus and his brother, and Whis gets little development with the introduction of his sister. And it's quite interesting to see them both have extended family and how they all behave with each other, especially with how on the exterior Beerus shows that he hates Champa when in the interior he actually cares. And it's interesting as well to see Whis compliment Goku in both the manga and the anime, explaining how intelligent and how powerful Goku's become. It's quite interesting, especially with how Goku's been presented as an idiot. So it's nice to see moments like this, similar from Z, and even Dragon Ball itself, showing how he's learning and embracing what he's known from before and what he's been taught from new. So also having Beerus wishing Champa on Earth was very wholesome, and it does really show us how much our Purple Sphinx cat cares for his brother. That's pretty much their character development at this point in the story. And to top it off, Zeno is introduced, who is a setup for the final arc. Of course, he doesn't make much sense in my opinion because he's supposed to be a literal child. People say this is Toriyama's view of being like, this is supposed to be the whimsy and intrigue of Dragon Ball. But in my opinion, it's just the complete opposite of Freeza, and I just don't like it. So, we're almost done with the review. We're pretty much more than halfway now, so we'll pretty much get to the end of it. So we're going to talk about the next arc, and this arc is probably the most controversial arc in Super, that being the Goku Black arc, of course. Now, this arc has some of the darkest and most brutal moments throughout the entirety of Super. So let's begin, as usual, we did with the previous arcs. Let's begin with a short summary, and then we'll break down the major events. So, we begin with Trunks fighting a shadowy figure that kills Bulma in front of his very eyes. The shadowy figure is then revealed to be Goku. Trunks then travels back in time to Goku and Vegeta to recruit them to help him. They then get beaten by this Goku in his future. Of course, they fought on him prior because he chases them back into their time using the time ring. They travel back to fight him and they lose. So they try and do an investigation and they find out it's a Kai from Universe 10 called Zamasu. And so Beerus gets involved and erases him. So they go back to help Trunks, thinking it'd be easier, that his universe would be fixed. However, it's made even worse, because now not only is there a Goku, who's now called Goku Black, who Trunks dubs him as Black, but they've also got Zamasu to deal with. So they lose the second time, and then they come back a third time, and they forget to seal Zamasu using the Mafuba. Zamasu and Goku then realize how dangerous they are, so they fuse, forming the fused Zamasu, and then Goku and Vegeta fuse, fight as Vegito Blue, only for them to get retconned, and then Trunks cuts Zamasu in two using a form called Spirit Bomb Sword, which he's never learnt before. Then Zamasu, depending on which continuity you're reading, becomes either the Sky or becomes many clones. And then Zeno is summoned by Goku and he erases the timeline while everyone else escapes and goes back to their main timeline. Now, I'm going to be talking about a big issue with this arc, which no one ever seems to talk about. So I'm going to be talking about this because it's a major thing, and if this issue was addressed, this arc probably wouldn't have existed to begin with. So we're going to talk about something in Dragon Ball Z. So now we know that in Trunks' future, in Dragon Ball Z, it played out different events, and when he traveled back to our main timeline, which became an alternate timeline because Trunks' timeline was the main one, things changed. Of these things that changed is Goku getting sick later on, Jiro becoming an android rather than dying to the androids, 17 and 18 becoming far stronger than they were originally in Trunks' timeline, Vegeta becoming far stronger than what was originally supposed to happen. All this leads to a chain of events changing completely. Now, one of this is Android 16. Android 16 is one of the main reasons Gohan attained Super Saiyan 2. And you can argue that if Android 16 hadn't existed, Cell probably would have killed the rest of the Z Fighters and it would have been over for Gohan. Because it was 16 that told him how to let it out. So all this changes the main timeline completely. All the events change. It's not the same. So unfortunately, the writing here is really inconsistent because they say that Babidi and Dabura appear in the exact same way they appeared in our main timeline. But why would they appear? Why would they come to Earth? Why would Babidi recruit Dabura? Remember, all the events have changed, so it doesn't make sense for the same beats to play out. You can say, well, the same events don't play out because Shin dies, sacrificing his life to stop Buu, and Babidi defeats him, and then Babidi and Dabura get taken out by Trunks. But it's practically the same plot. I mean, Babidi and Dabura on Earth gathering energy to free Buu. So it's the same thing all over again. When, remember, these events have all been changed due to Trunks' time meddling. It's changed the whole outcome and the whole plot of the story, so it wouldn't really lead to the same thing happening again. I don't know why no one talks about this. I'm going to show a manga panel where Trunks himself is confused as to why there's an Android 16. Now, there's many more evidence of this, but I'm going to just show this one manga panel because it's enough evidence to see that Trunks is confused because he's seen that traveling to the future has changed how the main events have been played out in our main time. So the reason for they did this is they wanted Beerus to not exist and not stop the arc from happening. So they wanted Shin to die. So they made the whole scenario happen all over again, when it's a big problem in my opinion. So we're gonna start breaking down this arc and just ignore this subplot for now. So Zamasu and Black. So these characters are quite interesting. Goku Black, in my opinion, is one of the best introductions for any villain in the history of Dragon Ball, yet unfortunately has one of the worst endings out of any arc out of Dragon Ball, out of the entirety, even non-canon series like GT. Yet these characters, they are interesting in concept, but they fail in execution. Now, Zamasu only stole Goku's body because he thought it was powerful. Yet, why wouldn't he steal the body of a god of destruction instead? It makes more sense, because the writers wanted Zamasu to steal the body of Goku. They wanted Goku's body to be stolen, even though narratively it makes no sense. He had the most powerful Dragon Balls in the entire Omniverse, the Super Dragon Balls, yet he chooses the body of one Saiyan called Goku from one specific universe, rather than increasing his own power, which he could have, into infinite potential. Now, this is the same type of writing error that exists Tournament Power arc in the manga. The Moro arc, Moro also gets the Namekian Dragon Balls and wishes a wish. Now everyone thinks that, wow, he might wish for immortality, he might wish for more power, what's his wish? And it turns out to be the most basic wish ever, which is just to free prisoners from the Galactic Patrol. So this is all a major issue, because it doesn't make sense why Zamasu's so fixed onto the one issue to steal just Goku's body, instead of when he had the most powerful balls in his possession. Especially with how he attained them in the first place, with Zuno being an absolute trash character and just being a complete plot device to just move the story on, even though he makes no sense. So, it seemed it would be amazing, besides the fact that Goku Black and Zamasu from the anime and manga, they are both quite different characters. Now, in my opinion, in the manga, they are both written better, and they are both more threatening and more dangerous, especially with how they both actually achieve the Zero Mortal Plan and end up just killing every last Earthling that's left in Trunks' future. So, in my light, that's better. Not only that, in the manga, we also have Gowasu, who barely had any development in the anime. His only purpose in the anime was that he was the main reason that Zamasu turned evil, and he showed him how to use the time rings. But in the manga, he tries to return Zamasu to the light, so that in case if anyone was thinking maybe Zamasu had potential of being a good guy again, then he's lost all that potential, because he almost kills Gowasu, Gowasu almost dies, but they save him in time. So it's quite an emotional scene, and it's just so much well written better than in the anime, which I will be referencing. And I do highly recommend you go and read the manga for the Goku Black arc, even though it has the same bad ending as the anime. Overall, the main elements, the main events are just so much better than the way the anime presents them. So in the manga, it's revealed that Zamasu, rather than just being a duo fighter with Goku Black, he has the ability of a Supreme Kai assistant, just like Kibito had in Dragon Ball Z. So whenever Goku Black gets hurt, he heals him. So Goku Black attains Rose in a realistic way, because he keeps fighting Goku and Vegeta knowing he will lose, only to retreat just before he dies to heal himself to get even stronger. Not only does this explain how Zamasu learned how to use Goku's body, but it also explains how he's getting stronger while fighting them, rather than just pulling out a random transformation by stabbing his hand, which makes absolutely zero sense. So the manga actually explains what's happening, which is really refreshing, because we actually want to see what's going on. We don't want a plot that's not explained properly be repeated over and over. So I also prefer the clone at the end when Fusamasu is split. The reason I like this is because it's a really nice homage to an old Dragon Ball Z film called Return of Cooler. And in this film, spoilers to anyone who hasn't watched it, but Cooler is a villain who's supposed to be Frieza's brother. This is of course all non-canon, but when Super Saiyan Goku and Super Saiyan Vegeta are fighting them, Cooler has split into a million mecha Coolers, and they charge at Goku and Vegeta, and Goku and Vegeta hilariously get up, and then they get completely destroyed. So it's a reference to that, which is really nice, and it's a good homage to DBZ. Now, also, Black attaining his power by stabbing himself makes zero sense, because unlike in the manga, understood how to use Zenkai boosts, in the anime, he didn't understand at all how to use a Zenkai boost at all, and thought stabbing himself would give him more power, which is not how it works. It's just bad writing. So, Vegeta and Goku, we are now going to be talking about both of them. So they're both interesting in this arc, except Goku loses even more of his brain and inconsistency. First off, we have a change in the main story that Dende somehow changed the hyperbolic time chamber, making them train in there as long as they want before, so that they can prepare for Goku Black, even though it makes absolutely zero sense since it was established before in Z that it was only 2 days they could spend in there, no more. So while Vegeta and Goku spend years in there, their power didn't change that much at all. They're pretty much still Super Saiyan Blue. There's no change in power. And this is a main issue, in my opinion, in the anime of Super. They constantly train and have said to have gained power, but they're still using the exact same forms over and over. It's still Super Saiyan Blue, and it's still losing fights. So what's the point of all this training? It's pointless. Training in Dragon Ball Z was used to progress and further our characters. They unlocked new techniques, they grew stronger, they were more resilient. In this, they just train for the sake of training. Nothing changes. They're the exact same character as they were before. So, technically, if they've trained for years and they fight Goku Black, who didn't have Rose at the time, they should completely erase him completely, because there's no way for Goku Black to be able to defeat them, especially when they both have mastered Super Saiyan Blue and have been training years together. So he should have been erased completely and the arc should have ended, but they wanted Goku Black to have a chance in the anime, so they let him somehow be much more powerful, much more durable, even though it makes no sense. And also the fact that Goku forgets the seal is absolutely ridiculous. How can Goku forget the seal? This is the sake of Trunks' future, the sake of the last inhabitants that are left alive. And here Goku's just presented as an idiot who forgot to bring the seal. Can you imagine the same Goku who was training Trunks and Goten to become Gotenks just before he returned to Otherworld, forgetting how the fusion dance worked? Can you imagine? It's ridiculous. This is not the same Goku. This is a buffoon of the character we used to love. Now, you remember when Ginyu took Goku's body, Goku knew how to defeat him, especially when Goku said that the body and the mind needs to work as one. So it's quite blatantly a retcon that Black in the anime specifically attains the same form as Goku, because he knows how to use Goku's body fully, and he attains form similar to Goku's, if not greater, with Rose, even though he's just attained a brand new body and doesn't even know how to use it. So there's also the really stupid bird feeding scene with Trunks and Mai, and it's been interpreted wrong multiple times, where they say that it's not kissing, it's just bird feeding, that Goku doesn't know what it is. But even if Goku didn't know what it is, it's still presented as stupid, because he speaks like a 2-year-old child pointing out what's going on, rather than acting like an individual with any sort of brain. They just don't understand what naivety means, because Goku in Dragon Ball Z was naive. He wasn't stupid. This is plain stupidity. This is not naivety. There's difference, and there's no clear line in Super between both. So Vegeta is portrayed, in my opinion, better in the manga. He listens to Trunks' pain about Bulma, and not only that, he gets an amazing scene where he's mastered Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue. So what he decides to do is he decides to switch between both, being the battle genius that he is, and Black is unable to fight him because he doesn't understand what's going on, because Blue is stated to take a lot of power. So for Vegeta to maintain Blue, he switches to a weaker form and then returns back to Blue. So it's genius, and it's something that Vegeta would easily master, and it's really consistent to how his character is written in Dragon Ball Z. So it's really good, and I love it, because this is what Vegeta is supposed to be represented as. Not like in the anime where Goku Black just says he's the opening act before stabbing him and then defeating him in 2 seconds. So also Vegeta being reluctant to fuse with Goku is also a continuous regression of his character, because he realized in the Buu saga how dangerous this was and how Buu was going to erase them all, and he eventually agreed to fuse. So Vegeta, who, by the way, this is 6 months later, needs to also understand they're in the same situation again, so he wouldn't really act this reluctant again. it's ridiculous. As well as Vegito having the same outfit that he had in Z, makes no sense, since he's supposed to be a fusion of what both were wearing, but I guess it's for merchandise purposes. So, Trunks and Mai, we are going to be talking about both of them now. So, Trunks is pretty consistent with his Z counterpart. However, in my opinion, unlocking his Super Saiyan Rage form in the anime absolutely makes no sense, and he shouldn't have a form like that, since it's rivals Super Saiyan Blue somehow, even though he hasn't trained, and even though Trunks knows the existence of the hyperbolic time chamber and he can use that to further his power, he just doesn't. So if he'd used that, it would have made more sense for him to have grown stronger. Plus, Trunks is confirmed to have gained Super Saiyan 2, yet he still gets destroyed by base Goku Black. Now remember, base Goku would easily stomp Super Saiyan 2 Trunks. Now we know that for a fact. However, this is Zamasu using Goku's body, and he still doesn't have full knowledge. This is at the beginning of the arc. So why would Trunks get completely destroyed? He's had years of combat, he's fought the android, he's fought Cell, he's fought Vegeta. Why would he struggle to defeat Goku Black? And Zamasu hasn't had years of fighting experience. We know that for a fact. We know that the first kill he's ever done was against those dinosaurs that he killed all the way back. So it makes no sense. So Trunks should have easily won here. So this is a big inconsistency. Another issue I have is the shipping between Trunks and Mai that the anime does. It's just creepy fan service, bringing back a character from OG Dragon Ball, which makes no sense, especially realistically how Mai would have technically died. Beerus and the gang, she wouldn't have survived. Especially with how the Dragon Balls disappeared from Trunks' timeline as soon as possible. They try and explain this by saying it was done before, but it's still really creepy, because she'd be about 90 years of age when she's with Trunks, so that she's even older than Bulma. So it's like Trunks is with someone who's older than his mother, even though she shouldn't be alive and she shouldn't be there. So it makes no sense. And Trunks himself is in his early 20s. It hasn't been that long. So it doesn't make much sense at all. It's just a really creepy romance that was too lazy to be developed. And further, especially when Trunks learns the Spirit Bomb sword, which in my opinion is really stupid, and it's unearned and comes out of nowhere, especially when no one has taught him the Spirit Bomb before, especially when Gohan wouldn't know how to do the Spirit Bomb, since Goku died when he was just a little kid, so Goku wouldn't have had the time to teach it to him, so there's no way Trunks could have learned that. You could say he could have learnt it from Goku in the Android Saga, but not once does Goku use the Spirit Bomb in the Android Saga. So there's no way Trunks could have ever learnt that from Goku. There's no way. It's not there. So, and it still couldn't defeat Zamasu, so it was just a big waste of time. So, we're almost done. We are going to talk about Gowasu and Shin. Now, these characters are important. In the anime, they aren't important because they don't serve anything except evidence for Beerus to erase Zamasu and create even more problems. While in the manga, Gowasu is, like I mentioned before, is shown to have cared for Zamasu, is really bad for letting him down, and tries his best to help him, even though he knows he could die in an instant. It's quite tragic, and it adds to him more as a character. Shin doesn't do anything, but acts as like a mini investigator, and just to be present in the background. His development is very minimal, and he deserved more to contribute to the story. Beerus and Whis, nothing much to say about them, except that they're not really important, except that they do change the plot in some way, because Beerus erases Zamasu, and Whis gives Trunks and Mai a new home in another universe. So they don't really do much to the story, instead of just like creating another Zamasu, which is a lot to the story, but like in terms of that's their only contribution. And for Beerus also not wanting to get involved with Black, it makes absolutely no sense, especially when Beerus is the type of guy that if someone had killed him behind his back in the timeline, he'd definitely want to get revenge face to face. He wouldn't just want to passively ignore it and go to sleep, especially when he knows he himself was killed in a spineless and pathetic way. And we know that he could have gotten involved because he got involved with Zamasu, erasing him and creating even more problems. So even if Beerus would have said, well, it's not my problem to get involved with another timeline's issues, he created that issue, so it is his problem, so he can get involved. The final character I want to talk about this arc is Zuno. I loathe this character's existence because he breaks the whole plot of Dragon Ball. If he existed, why didn't Freeza use him to his advantage? Why didn't Vegeta and Nappa use them to their advantage? He's supposed to know everything there is to know about the universe. So why did no one use him to their advantage? They could have used him for anything. It makes no sense, and he was just thrown in last second to give Zamasu a way to get Goku's body. Even though it would have been more interesting if Zamasu spied on conversations between Gowasu and other individuals, rather than just using a giant plot device to understand what to do. It's lazy, and it's the main reason I didn't really mention Zuno that much, but there we go. Chapter 5. If you have reached this chapter, congratulations. I will now be speaking about the Tournament of Power. This chapter is going to be my biggest chapter, as there is so much to unpack here. After this chapter will be my final conclusion on the entirety of Dragon Ball Super and how it ruined Dragon Ball for me. But now, we'll do the same structure as we've been doing before. So let's get with a brief run of what this arc is about. So, after the events of Goku Black, Goku gets invited to Zeno, where he announces a universal tournament to bring 10 fighters from each universe and have them fight in one big tournament. Now, remember, there are two Zenos here because the Zeno from the previous arc, who erased the Goku Black universe, is now with our current Zeno because Goku decided to bring him for absolutely no reason except to like appease Zeno or something. So he brings him, and both of them want to have a tournament. So they announce that they have to bring 10 fighters from each universe and have them fight in one big tournament. So whatever universe that loses gets erased, and the winner gets the Super Dragon Balls. So they have a preliminary match where Goku fights, Gohan fights, and Boo fights. After that, they recruit the fighters, only to realize Boo is asleep. So they go to Hell and recruit Freeza, who wants the Dragon Balls to revive him if he wins, and Goku agrees. So they fight in the tournament, and Universe 7 eventually beats Jiren, mainly due to Mastered Ultra Instinct, and everything is restored, including Freeza back to his life, and everything back to the way it was. So now, let's break down the elements of this arc. So, Goku and Vegeta, and the rest of the Universe 7 fighters. So, both Goku and Vegeta are quite interesting in this arc. I think they're both great. Goku is a lot less stupid in this arc, even though he does do some other mistakes. But he actually wants to have a good fight, even though technically, as soon as the Torn Power would have started, all the other universes would have immediately tried to eliminate Goku first, since he started the whole damn tournament. So everyone would obviously want to get revenge, and they wouldn't just ignore him, start fighting each other. And Goku gets Instinct Omen multiple times throughout this arc, and it's badass, but it does remind you of something. Now, if you remember the thumbnail that I chose for this video, I quite explicitly showed Namek Saga Goku contrasted with Tournament of Power Goku. Now, this was deliberate, as the Torn Power arc is trying to recreate the Namek Saga, with Ultra Instinct Omen being Kaioken times 20, including the way Goku is dressed with the blue top and the black hair, and MUI is supposed to be a recreation, which is Mastered Ultra Instinct, is supposed to be a recreation of Super Saiyan, down to the torn off shirt. But as I'll explain, the execution of these transformations don't come as close to how good Super Saiyan and Kaioken were. So let's explain how Goku attains these forms. So Instinct Omen is earned through getting a Spirit Bomb deflected back at him when Jiren deflects the Spirit Bomb that's thrown at him, and Goku attains it through that. Now, this makes absolutely zero sense. Remember that the Spirit Bomb, or the Genki Dama, if you're reading the manga, is used on evil people, and it is only attracted to evil ki. And we know in the manga and the anime that Jiren isn't an evil character. He's a hero, and he's actually saved his universe multiple times. So I don't understand how Goku thought a Spirit Bomb would do anything, especially when Jiren isn't evil. So this is another excuse of Goku being stupid. So of course Jiren deflects it, but then what makes no sense whatsoever is that Goku somehow absorbs it. Now, Goku is a good person, and if you say he's not, then you don't understand Dragon Ball to its core. I'm going to show you a manga panel here during the Saiyan saga when Krillin throws the Spirit Bomb at Vegeta, Vegeta dodges, and then the Spirit Bomb is going to hit Gohan. Now, as you can see, Goku tells Gohan that he can bounce back the Spirit Bomb because he has no evil ki. It is so if this Spirit Bomb was bounced back at Goku, Goku would just either bounce it off the whole tournament, or he would bounce it back at Jiren, and it wouldn't hurt anyone until it found evil ki and it lashed onto that. So Goku absorbing it makes absolutely zero sense. And then above that, it attains, UI Omen, which makes no sense. Especially how he's absorbed his own energy that he's gathered. This is not how spirit bombs work. This is just a blatant retcon just so that they can just get UI Omen built up for no reason, which is a really BS, in my opinion, transformation that just comes out of nowhere to save Goku's ass whenever he's in trouble, in the anime specifically. Now, Mastered Ultra Instinct is done far better, and it's built up at the very end, but instead of being giving the victory, it's taken away from Goku, and that's pretty much where he has team up to defeat Jiren in his base. Now let's talk about Vegeta. Vegeta doesn't do much in this arc. He eliminates a couple of fighters, but his final attack against Toppo is a complete recreation of the Buu Saga, but worse in every sense, and not justified. Besides the fact that Vegeta tries to fight Jiren yet accomplishes nothing and loses, except eliminating Toppo, who he himself never eliminated anyone, they then also recruit Master Roshi instead of Yamcha. Seriously, it makes zero sense. And we will be talking about Master Roshi now, since apparently Master Roshi did secret training that made his power level jump from about 130, which was shown when they used the Scouter in the Saiyan Saga on Master Roshi, to literally quintillions. Now, this makes zero sense. Now, you can argue that Roshi was suppressing his power, which it does make sense, but there's just no way he was suppressing trillions and quintillions of power.
I can't take this anymore! Huh? I'm not sure if I can help or not, but I'll never find out here! No! Don't do it!
Darn it! Doesn't anyone listen? Their heads are too thick. Oh, poopy. What am I talking about? My goodness. If I was in his shoes, I would have probably done the same thing. My gosh, it seems like yesterday when I was just like them. I was considered the strongest in the world back then. Now I'd do anything just to be able to help out again.
Feels completely pathetic because he can't help his students fight against Cell. So as you can see in this scene, it shows that Roshi can't fight, and if he was somehow suppressing power, now wouldn't be the time to suppress it because of course Earth is in danger. So it makes absolute no sense. So after this, Roshi fights in the tournament. He eliminates a bird type fighter, I forgot his name, he's forgettable, and then he utters a homage to OG Dragon Ball, where he talks about his motto, Turtle Hermit Way. But Roshi being in the whole Torn of Power makes no sense anyway, especially when he's not qualified to fight against the strongest fighters from each universe. And Yamcha is shown throughout Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball to be one of Master Roshi's successors. Not his only successor, but one of his successors, because he's mastered Roshi's training. He knows how to do the Kamehameha, which is Roshi's main signature attack. And he has his own unique attack, which is the Spirit Ball. So it's really stupid idea to include Roshi for no reason when he should have realistically died really quickly. Now, we're going to be talking about Krillin, 18 and Tien. The reason I'm talking about them as a group is all three of them don't really do much to the plot and they all get knocked out very quickly. Especially Krillin in the manga, which gets knocked out by Frost within like 2 seconds. So absolutely none of these characters do anything except just be like fillers added into the team, just so that they can react to Goku powering up. That's the only reason they exist. They don't exist to further the plot or anything other than that. But the training I want to mention was Krillin with Goku against Super Saiyan Blue Goku. He held back Kamehameha, which is absolutely ridiculous because he should get incinerated, especially with Krillin's power level. Even though it's greater than Roshi's, he shouldn't really stand a chance against Super Saiyan Blue Goku. So it doesn't make much sense at all. Then we have Gohan. Now Gohan finally gets a light shone on him after 4 freaking arcs. He actually does something. But in the anime, he doesn't do that much. He eliminates a few fighters. However, he gets appointed as leader by Goku, then instantly ignored by everyone, including Goku. Makes the whole team seem stupid because they can't even formulate plans for their team's success. Gohan in the manga had more development and actually managed to beat Kefla, Saiyan fusion between Caulifla and Kale, which is a feat of its own. And I don't find it too unrealistic for Gohan to do that, especially knowing how powerful Gohan is and his experience in combat, especially being able to beat Kefla, who, remember, had only attained their Super Saiyan forms from recent. So it's really cool to see Gohan get that win in the manga, and it's just very nice. And I know it's a bit of Gohan fan service, but it's really good. I think it's better than the Beast Gohan that we got in the DBS superhero movie. Instead of randomly Goku unlocking Ultra Instinct Omen to save his ass when they were both about to knock him out. So let's move to Piccolo, who is absolutely disrespected in this arc. Now, he gets knocked out by a little bug creature that Piccolo could have easily heard, since he has Namekian super hearing that none of the other Z fighters have. So the only contestant that Piccolo could have easily had the advantage of against, he loses to. So it's absolutely disgraceful and disgusting, since Piccolo manages to eliminate about 2 Namekians with the help of Gohan from Universe 6, but pretty much does nothing and gets eliminated in that stupid way. Do you remember? Let's look back at the original Dragon Ball. Do you remember how hard Piccolo fought against Goku in that very final round? It took everything to Goku to eliminate him. He almost died. Piccolo missed his vital organs. It was an incredible fight. That's Piccolo, not the idiot that's shown here to get eliminated in 2 seconds. So, let's go on to 17. Now, 17's a great character that was developed beforehand, of course, in the Android saga. And in the manga, his training is quite weird. So let's talk about it. So in the manga, he says that he's found the Cell Juniors, that they survived, and 17 trained with them somehow. He trained them, and he trained with them. That's how his power increased. But it's quite clear that they all died because Gohan destroyed every single one of their heads. Some of them were even ripped in 2. So it's impossible for them to regenerate, because we know for a fact that Cell regenerates from his nucleus in his head. So if Gohan has destroyed the nucleus in his head multiple times, it makes no sense for them to revive. Now, fans can argue, well, Cell regenerated after Goku blasting half of his body, but this was a plot hole not explained by Toriyama, and it's not something that the Cell Juniors can do. Just because it was a plot hole doesn't mean it carries on to the Cell Juniors. It's just for Cell in that specific moment. Anyways, 17 fights Super Saiyan Blue Goku and practically stalemates with him, which makes absolutely zero sense, since we know 17 was stronger than Super Saiyan and weaker than Super Vegeta in the Android saga, which is around 200 million. To jump from 200 million to quintillions, it's the same jump as Freeza in the Resurrection F arc, but over a longer period. So even though it's possible for him to have gained that power while training on a farm, it's absolute BS, and it's insulting to the fans. Finally, we have the best character in the Tournament of Power, Freeza. Now, Freeza was stand-in for Boo, since Boo was a big disappointment that did nothing to the story but disappoint the fans and disappoint us all in general. So Freeza is an unpredictable foe who can turn the tables in an instant, and watching him eliminate many fighters was very enjoyable, especially with how wicked he was with everyone. The best being again doing his stance saying that he's strong and all that stuff, and Freeza says you're nothing, just to eliminate him within a second. It was such a great moment, absolutely hilarious, especially to a character that none of us cared about.
I'm not gonna let you terrorize them! There's no way! We're the ones who are gonna win this! I know that blast connected.
Use what little brains you have and surrender.
I'll never give up again. I'll keep fighting until the end.
Your end is now.
And was rushed in his last second development. So Frieza then challenges Toppo and humiliates him, and even Jiren himself, and he actually eliminates Dispo with the help of Gohan, and he eliminates Frost too, by teaming up with Gohan as well. Now, my only issue with Frieza in this arc is he doesn't try and get revenge against Goku. Instead, he helps him, giving him energy and telling him what to do and supporting him. It's unlike what Frieza would do, because prior, since he loads Goku, he absolutely hates him and he wants revenge in any way, shape or form. Fans can argue that Frieza has, first of all, signed a pact, and this is like the fate of his universe and so on and so forth. But I think Frieza's hate towards Goku and his revenge eclipses all that. And Freeza doesn't follow any treaty, as shown in Dragon Ball Z. He will break any promise he says, so it doesn't even matter. So that's my only inconsistency that I've seen, especially where everyone's distracted in Tournament of Power and you can easily kill Goku without anyone realizing what's going on. So Freeza is forced to trust Goku in 17 in the very final part of the arc and defeat Jiren, and in my opinion that's the best scene in the entirety of Super, and he wins along with Goku, and it's really good. It's a homage to the Namek Saga, but instead of Frieza fighting against our heroes, he's fighting with our heroes. So I'm gonna briefly now talk about the other universes. I'll make this short since they don't have much development at all, so we're gonna talk about the main universes. The rest we're not gonna mention. So we're going to mention Universe 9, who were the first universe to send assassins to try and stop Frieza, but all they did was they gave us an amazing fan service scene about Frieza killing everyone through a death beam, and they were eliminated within 2 seconds, and they weren't a threat at all, and they were all kind of forgettable, especially with how Frieza easily managed to withstand the God of Destruction energy. So all they did was they just highed the stakes because they were the first universe to be erased. So other than that, Universe 6 was pre-established before in the Universe 6 tournament arc. We don't care about them that much, except being that Caulifla attained Super Saiyan in the most insulting way possible, and Kale attaining Super Saiyan green form also makes not much sense at all. That they both attained it even easier than Cabba did, so it's just becoming ridiculous at this point. And Universe 11 was the final relevant universe, which is of course being Jiren's universe, which of course none of them in the entire Universe 11 fighters managed to do anything, or talking about them separately. Now, Universe 11 fighters, most of the fighters, 7 of the fighters are all forgettable and useless, and they managed to do nothing to the whole Universe 11. The only 3 fighters that matter, and the ones that I'm going to be talking about, are Dispo, Toppo, and Jiren. Now we know that there's another one called Carousel or something. He's supposed to be the leader of the group, yet he does nothing and gets eliminated really quickly. So we're going to talk about the main ones, starting with Dispo, then Toppo, and then finally Jiren. So Dispo gets eliminated by Gohan and Frieza. He proves how dangerous he is by easily destroying Frieza in his golden form. Frieza's forced to team up with Gohan in order to defeat him. And then Toppo gets eliminated through Frieza, 17, and Goku, and mainly Vegeta. Vegeta's the main one who eliminates Toppo through, of course, a really boring recreational scene of the Buu Saga. They create tension, Toppo, Dispo, and Jiren, but the shame is that they never manage to eliminate anyone, which is a big problem. The only fighter that manages to eliminate one is Jiren. The rest don't eliminate a single, especially when their universe is built up as the most powerful in the tournament. So it doesn't make much sense at all. The only interesting part is Toppo abandoning his pride to become a destruction god. It's quite interesting, and it shows how far he was pushed to become this monster, especially how psychologically dangerous Frieza is. Jiren was the most boring, having practically zero character, and we only got his rushed backstory at the very end. It really meant nothing to us, really, and Jiren is just boring in general. Remember, whatever makes a good story is not only a good transformation that was built up, but also a good villain. This is why Super Saiyan worked, because Frieza was an outright monster that killed Krillin in front of Goku, and almost killed Piccolo in front of his own eyes. Jiren just threatened Goku's friends, but did nothing. You see the clear difference here? It's a big issue with Jiren, and it puts you off this arc's villain/antagonist. Now, we'll be talking about the Zeno and the Angels and the Gods of Destruction. They added nothing to the story but gawk at how powerful Goku was when he finally attained mastered Ultra Instinct, and it frustrates me that Zeno said that he would erase everything if no one wished the other universes back, because that's just really stupid writing, and it's basically, well, if these events didn't happen, everyone would have died. It's plain idiotic writing, and it's just basically trying to force the story into a certain element where it's like, oh, it's all fate, and if that didn't happen, everything would have been destroyed anyway. We barely get any development from any of the Angels or Gods of Destructions. The only one we kind of get some development is the Grand Supreme Priest, who we see him build the arena, and he does have a few interactions with Zeno. But other than that, none of them have much development at all, other than the mouse, who of course is Beerus's enemy, because haha, Beerus is a cat. Yeah, he's a mouse. I forgot his name. But it's pointless development that doesn't lead anywhere. And it's a shame, because in the manga, we get an awesome, badass battle between all the gods of destructions. Now, I love this because it gives us a personality of each god of destruction. Now, I'm going to show you some of this panel just to explain what I mean. So, we see that Universe 11's god of destruction, he throws cards because he's a clown, as you can see. It's adding to his personality, and we see Universe 10, God of Destruction, is an elephant, and he charges, and it's similar to what he is, an elephant. Even though it's not much, it gives us enough to give us somewhat of a development to the Gods of Destruction that we don't get, if at all, any in the anime. The anime gives us nothing. So I love this fight, and it's such a shame that this fight was replaced with the boring preliminary fight that we had between Toppo and Goku, which was incredibly boring, and just led to show Goku being further of an idiot, because he decides to eliminate Toppo when the whole universe's being erased thing was going to be removed by Toppo. So it just shows Toppo being the good guy and Goku being the villain. So if you've reached my final conclusion, I thank you all for watching this video, and I'm going to begin. This is going to be a conclusion of each of the arcs that I've talked about, because I haven't really given a conclusion of each arc, because I thought I'd just save it all in the end as like one big final summary of the whole topic. So I'm going to begin, and we'll start off with the Battle of Gods arc, which was a simple and interesting arc. It was the most basic out of all the arcs. Beerus and Whis, in my opinion, like I said, could have been introduced better, as they created plot holes with their existence, such as the Z-Sword, so on. Super Saiyan God was, like I said before, was boring and unearned. The transformation and the fight between Beerus and Goku was quite boring, and it dragged out, especially with them constantly screaming at each other in the anime, which was really bad. It just wasn't good. Not to mention Vegeta's anger was really bad, as it was dragged out too much, and it just wasn't shown as a fit of pure anger. I'm talking about the anime and not the movie, because the movie, in my opinion, did it far superior and in a shorter runtime, and it didn't have the same issues. Unfortunately, it's no longer canon, so I can't cover it overall, especially with how they said Beerus used 70% of his power, when now in canon we know it's probably less than 1%. So that was pretty much the Battle of Gods arc. Next we have Resurrection F. The only reason this arc exists is to cash in on Freeza, because everyone loves Freeza. So in my personal opinion, like I said before, he's my favourite villain from DBZ. They brought him back from the dead, and they thought it wouldn't make much sense for some. And even though it doesn't make much sense for some of his random henchmen that we've never seen before to know about the Dragon Balls, especially when in Z we had development onto how Frieza knew about the Namekian Dragon Balls, because he listened in on the scouter that when Vegeta was talking to Piccolo about. So in this, there's nothing telling us about how his henchmen knew, because even if his henchmen were there at the time, this was years ago, and they would have to have remembered it all the way since then, and not forgotten about it, and known where it was, because the only people that knew were Kui, Frieza and his henchmen, the Ginyu Force, who, if you remember, every single one of them died. No, so there's no one who knows about it. Everyone who knew was dead, so it doesn't make sense for Frieza's force to already all of a sudden know about the Dragon Balls and go there. So, plus Frieza knowing anything about Buu or Super Saiyan God also makes no sense, because Buu was established to be millions and millions of years before like anyone. So how would Frieza remember him? Not only that, how would King Cold know about him? Because King Cold and the Frieza family, for all we know, probably have been ruling the universe for maybe 100 years or so. So that 100 years does not eclipse the millions of years that Buu existed beforehand. No one should know about Buu except beings that have that age or have succeeded it. And then also knowing about Super Saiyan God is a major retcon, because he only knew about Super Saiyan. If Frieza knew about Super Saiyan God, he would have immediately erased the planet, because he would have known how dangerous it was. And if you got to remember that Super Saiyan, Frieza thought he could fight Super Saiyan and beat him, but if he realized there was also a Super Saiyan God that was far beyond the Super Saiyan, then he wouldn't have fought Goku in the first place. He would have just destroyed everything. So it's direct retcon to the Frieza saga, and it makes no sense. Plus, Frieza's unrealistic, insane power makes no sense as well. And if you think about it, in this arc, Master Roshi fights, it does set up the tournament power arc, but it still makes no sense since Master Roshi's power level has to be above 2000, and he has to be consistently fighting fighters that are above 2000, and we know that that's not Master Roshi's power level, and we know that he can't maintain that for long. So even if he did fight a couple and beat a couple, he still wouldn't be able to fight consistently with the Z fighters, so he'd be more of an obstacle rather than actually help them, so he wouldn't actually be there. So that's also inconsistent to the writing. And then having Beerus and Whis interfere when Freeza won is really lazy, and it's just insulting, especially with how they let Goku steal the win from Vegeta, which was also even more insulting. And overall, this arc just felt like a filler arc that just its only purpose was to introduce Super Saiyan Blue, Golden Frieza, and that was all really. So now we're going to be talking about Universe 6 tournament arc. Now this was interesting in concept, but poorly executed in my opinion, because having Beerus having a brother was quite interesting, and having them bicker and fight was also quite fun. But with the tournament being full of interesting ideas, there were just so many inconsistencies, such as Piccolo quitting the tournament for no reason, even though he was qualified to fight, especially being able to beat Cabba and Frost, but for some reason the plot wouldn't let him. And then having Cabba and Frost in general just being boring rip-off characters of our main characters that are just weaker, which is just lazy rather than interesting. The only interesting character was Hit, which was quite interesting in the anime, but was inconsistent since Goku used the Kaioken multiplier times 10 above Super Saiyan Blue. Now, I think this was a stupid scene, and I'm being a bit controversial here because many fans love the scene, but let me explain why this scene is a really stupid scene. Now, not only is Goku using the power of Super Saiyan Blue, which he attained through the training of the gods, remember this is the level beyond Super Saiyan God, but also he's using a 10 times multiplier, and on top of all that, Hit still stalemated him and he couldn't beat him, which is really stupid, because if we mirror an arc in Dragon Ball Z, which was the Freeza saga, as skilled as Goku was against Freeza, he just couldn't beat Freeza. Freeza was stronger. Frieza's power overwhelmed him and Goku was getting destroyed. So it makes no sense for Hit. You can say Hit is skilled, but there's no amount of skill that would overwhelm the amount of power that Goku outputted with that Kamehameha. Hit would have just been erased. So it makes no sense, and overall it's just very inconsistent. So the setup for the final arc was also useful, but Zeno existing created major problems to the overall arc, of course. And it was mainly set up it was mainly served to set up everyone for the tournament to power arc. So let's talk about the Goku Black arc. It was quite exciting when it began. It made us fans interested to see who Goku was. Many thought it was Goten, which was quite interesting to be honest, until it was revealed to be a Kai, which was quite boring. We didn't know about this Kai, but we were introduced to him through Goasu, who leads him astray, causing him to steal Goku's body and take over Trunks' universe. But why Trunks' universe specifically? Because there are infinite timelines, and he chooses Trunks' because there's no Beerus, even though, as I explained prior, the only reason Beerus died was due to bad writing, as the events of the Buu saga were beat for beat translated in Trunks' future. Overall, this arc set up many things that led nowhere, including the Mafuba, which didn't work due to Goku being lobotomized, Super Saiyan Blue Vegito being retconned, because he would finish the arc too early, Spirit Bomb Sword from Trunks that led nowhere and made the universe even worse, and so on. All these setups weaken the arc as none of them are paid off, and the writers had to delete the arc because they made the villain too powerful and negated and cancelled anything that would have destroyed him or beat him. So it just fails as an arc, which is a real shame, as this arc had the most potential out of any arc in Super, in my opinion. Finally, the Tournament of Power arc. It was set up from previous arcs, however it failed, because Jiren wasn't set up prior, so he had no personality, and the person we as an audience should be most excited to see fight Goku is just a blank slate that brings nothing to the table. Besides the fact that all of Goku's transformations mirror the Freeza saga but worse, don't actually result in the win of the arc, so more setup but no payoff. Like Mastered Ultra Instinct, for example, broke the internet at how great it was, but did it defeat Jiren? No. Super Saiyan broke anime as a whole, but did it defeat Frieza? Yes. You see the difference? Not to mention Vegeta repeats his arc over and over in this one, and nothing new is added. the rest of the Z fighters got ridiculous power-ups out of nowhere, such as Master Roshi manages to fight beings from the strongest universes, even though his power level was less than 1000. So overall, this arc had some great moments, such as Freeza, Goku, and 17 teaming up, but bad moments, such as Goku getting Ultra Instinct Omen from his own Spirit Bomb. I know I mainly spoke about the anime continuity, but it's the main source that most fans grew up with, and the manga had the minority. So overall, I see this arc as a recreation of the Freeza saga, only for hype purposes, and seeing Freeza be there all the more made the feeling that way, especially with how he's the funniest character in Tournament Power, and my personal favourite overall. This was the main reasons why Super ruined Dragon Ball for me. It's mainly about Super losing the identity of Dragon Ball and becoming all about fights, transformations, and creating drama out of nothing. It really loses track of what made Dragon Ball special and gives characters insane power-ups just because of power creep rather than justifying the increase in power. Overall, I thank you for listening to me rant and talk about for all this time. I made this video to try and shed a new light on DBS that many fans don't see, and why I also enjoy Super sometimes. It ruins Dragon Ball as a whole for me personally. Thank you for your time and patience, and I hope you have a nice day. If any questions you have, feel free to ask in the comments. I'm going to link all the manga panels as evidence in the description, so you can click on them and you can see them on the site, and you can see explicitly what I'm saying. If you've got any questions, just reply to my comments and I'll try and answer as many as I can. And thank you very much for listening to me talk about Super.